people who have been polled in a very high percentage really lie. Are there any other methods to monitor this client satisfaction that is not the polls, other than the polls, and how are those methods, if you know of them?
Well, first, I don't know if that's altogether true. I've heard that said about the polling places in political situations, but I'm not very certain that when it comes to feedback on services that we receive that people lie necessarily. I think the biggest problem is that most people don't provide us that feedback at all, and so it's necessary to take some affirmative action to try to gather that data. One thing I would always suggest is that we look to ourselves and recognize that we're customers too. And how do we behave with the suppliers that we interact with? What do we expect? And what kind of feedback do we provide them in terms of our expectations? The vast majority of people, unfortunately, build expectations without ever stating them. Therefore, it's really necessary that we do whatever we can in order to gather information from them. That can be leaving customer report cards in areas where customers will see them near a cash register, say. That can be sending surveys to people. It can be proactive on your part in terms of telephone calls to customers, soliciting their input, but being sensitive to the fact that customers also don't want to be intruded upon. So you need to keep a fine balance there.
And now we are going back to Mexico, and this question is coming from León, Guanajuato, the Technological Institute. Adelante. Good morning. I'm Engineer Hernandez from this Technological Institute. Congratulations, Mr. Finnigan, for all these ideas. What would you recommend for us to improve our customer service when it comes to an educational institution, both to their clients, their customers being the community, and also the internal customers, which are the students?
That is a very good and difficult question. The first one is you do need to decide who your customers are. And you may have multiple customers in that kind of situation. In the past, I have done some work with the California State Department of Education, and that was one of the more difficult problems for them to overcome, who in fact were the customers for their services. If you think in terms of the services themselves, that is how classrooms are operated, how registrations are done, etc., then the customer may in fact be the student, and it's not inappropriate to engage the student or students in defining what would be a better way to go through class registration. What is a better way to manage a school day? I don't want to get into a long explanation, but there's an excellent example of a high school in Alaska that has done that with a great deal of success, and is a model that is being examined by a lot of school districts in the United States. The other customer may be the customers such as the Board of Trustees or parents or the community at large, who have a vested interest in the outcome, how effectively education is delivered. That would represent another different set of measures and data, and those kinds of people would have to be engaged separately. Again, there are surveys. There are also, and in this example, I would think focus groups would be much more effective, where people could come together, sit down at a table, and sort of collaboratively identify what their expectations may be. There is a caution, however. Again, the boundaries are extremely important here. When you are in the public sector, there may be other constraints that prohibit you from meeting all of the customer's desires, and the customer needs to understand that. And those may be constraints of law, or constraints of budget, or whatever. But the more open you can be, I think the more likelihood you're going to be able to satisfy those requirements.
Damos ahora la bienvenida a la Universidad Tecnológica de Panamá.
Panama Technological University in Panama. Welcome. Good morning. A very special greeting to all of you from the 3rd Congress of the Technological University in Panama. The question is the following. We have always heard the phrase, the client is king, but you also mentioned something about inadequate clients. Could you elaborate a little more on this concept of inadequate clients?
What I think I may have said was that there are two kinds of customers. The right customer, and by right customer, I mean those customers that you have targeted as you have put together your own plans of market strategies, products, etc. You've targeted a group of people that you are trying to reach. We've seen remarkable success in this country with Walmart stores as an example, where they've clearly identified the kinds of customers that they want, and they have reached out to them. And those are the right customers. But also walking into a Walmart store from time to time will be people who probably really should have gone to a much more upscale store. They're there because perhaps they were driving by and it was convenient. And they normally go to a store which there may be more personalized service, or where products are more expensive. In any event, they become the wrong customer. And so you need to understand what the parameter, you'd identify the wrong customers first by understanding who the right customers are.
And now we're going back to Mexico, and this is coming from the Autonomous University from Mexico, Cuautitlán, State of Mexico. How effective are the qualitative studies or research when you use when you want to find out about the choices and preferences of the peoples, the clients?
Qualitative information, the softer kinds of inputs, we'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment, but are extremely important. That's what I meant by market research, by going out and asking people what they want. We won't get into it in this broadcast. What's extremely important and difficult to do is to take those softer kinds of inputs and build them into the processes that produce your products or services. There is a process, those of you who are in engineering are probably familiar with a term called quality function deployment, where a soft kind of customer requirement like the solid closing of a door in an automobile, how do you build that into the process of designing the automobile? That's extremely important in the automobile industry. A softer input in terms of when I deal with your employees, I want them to be friendly. You know, that softer kind of requirement may be more difficult to satisfy, but you can build it into your system. But by all means, you need to continue to get that kind of input. And again, face-to-face kinds of, whether telephone surveys or focus groups are the best sources for that.
Now we're going back to Lima, and the question is coming from the National University, Lima, Peru. From Lima, in Peru, the configuration of the business sector, both industrial and commercial, is based on the micro and small enterprises, and we have a very high percentage of this sector in this national economy, in 70%. What would be the strategies to develop a process of performance oriented on client satisfaction for these small and micro enterprises?
Very good question. I think in the next segment we'll talk a little bit about some of the performance criteria, but all of the principles, I believe, apply. Exactly how you are able to apply them will depend on the size of the organization, the business that you're in, etc. One of the things that's happening in the global economy is that because of the technology, there are much more niche market environments being created. And as a result, smaller organizations are able to satisfy those niches and also, by the way, increase that competition. So, but it's those small organizations that pick out that small group of people that they're going to go after and then do that as professionally and effectively as possible are the ones who are succeeding. The strategies remain the same. You just customize them to your own market and to the size of your own organization. Again, I think an important principle is remember that you're a customer too, and what are your expectations?
Saludamos ahora a Brasil. La pregunta la formulan del servicio brasileño de
This is
apoyo a
coming
micro y
from
pequeñas
Brazil,
empresas
the support service to small and medium horizontal Brazil. Support
Minas Gerais, la escuchamos.
There has been a lot of talking about satisfying the client and keep the client loyal and motivated. I ask, what the enterprises, the companies, have done to keep their employees satisfied and happy and loyal?
That is a very good question, and I won't defer it, but we will talk in some detail, or I will talk in some detail in the next segment about that. Because there absolutely is a link between employee satisfaction and customer loyalty, particularly in the service industry. When people come for a service, whether it be to go to the local fast food restaurant, and they encounter people who they recognize, they encounter people who know what they want, who are anxious to satisfy them, then those customers are satisfied. And the kinds of employees that provide those kinds of services are employees who enjoy what they're doing, feel empowered with what they're doing, and are satisfied with what they're doing. Dissatisfied employees will create dissatisfied customers. But again, we'll talk about that in some detail in a moment.
And now we're going to answer a question that has come via fax. And this one's coming from Fenalco, Medellin, Colombia. But wait a second, we're first going to Argentina. Let's give way to Argentina. Too much noise, I'm sorry. Catholic University. Will you please que se alejen del monitor, que se alejen del monitor. No se puede con... Once a company has defined as the strategic objective is customer satisfaction, and once the levels have been, if their leaders have already become aware of that, what are the next steps in a process of implementing all these strategies, and what are the instruments, what are the tools, once everybody's aware of the need?
Excellent question. With the classic process would be once the senior management of an organization has decided that customer satisfaction is an important process and outcome for the organization. One of the things it needs to do is, first of all, have a statement of purpose relative to customer satisfaction, such as the example I cited from British Airways. It needs to communicate that to all employees, that this is a statement of the expectations the organization has. The next thing is, how does one operationalize customer satisfaction? That means putting in place the methodology for gathering data in order to measure yourself, which may be the number of customer complaints, it may be surveying employees and establishing a metric of satisfaction. If I may take the moment to digress at Xerox Corporation as an example, We survey a sample of our customers, about 4,000 every year, and we have an indices for measuring that. And we've debated in the past about what is the proper percentage to achieve. Is 85% customer satisfaction a good measure, or should it be 100%? And we have now finally decided that the goal is 100%. And since we've established that very high measure, we've slowly been moving towards that direction, which is why we're able to have what we call the customer satisfaction guarantee. So the organization and employees need to have a benchmark or a measurement that they can use that they're striving for. After that, it's a question of training employees, of empowering employees, and putting in place the criteria that you have established as appropriate for your organization to provide satisfied customers.
And we're coming back to Brazil, and this question is coming from Rio de Janeiro.
Hello. Hi, good morning. May I say? The saying the client's always right is not always true. For a QA company, how should be the relation between an annoying or a dishonest client? Which is the role of ethics in this situation?
Tough question. Ethics, I think, I don't know if ethics is the right word, but trust is extremely important in the relationship between customers and suppliers. Trust in terms of stated expectations and my belief that you're going to satisfy those. If for whatever may be the reason in dealing with a customer or a group of customers, I find that as a supplier I can't trust them, whether that's an ethical issue or not, that creates too much instability. I need to search out and find a targeted customer population or a set of customers to whom I can do business and do business with a degree of trust and reliability. There will always be instability in relationships, but I need to strive for as much stability as I possibly can have.
Saludamos ahora a Patzingan en Michoacán.
Patzingan, Michoacán, and this is coming from the Technological Institute. Good morning. Our question is the following. For an enterprise, a public sector, government sector, who has no competition, what kind of a study or research do you think would be advisable to apply in order to know the real level of customer satisfaction?
I think the principle is the same. You need to ask your customers what their expectations are, what makes them satisfied. As they use your services or interact with, I don't know what the agencies are, but interact with your agency, what do they expect, and can you provide that? The best example I can think of that comes to my mind off the top of my head is here in California with the automobile registration system. The Department of Motor Vehicles has gone out of its way to survey customers in terms of what were the things that bothered them, and in focus groups identifying from those customers how they would go about satisfying their needs in terms of long waits, etc. And today you can telephone that department and make appointments to come in to register your car, to get your driver's license, etc. They do a variety of things, not the least of which is it used to be a perk for employees of that department to be able to do their own business, that is, register their own automobiles behind the scenes. They no longer can do that. They're now obligated to go to another office of the Department of Motor Vehicles, just like any other customer, so that they have a sense of what it's like to use their own services. So there are a variety of things that you can do to learn what your customers expect, and a variety of ways that you can use to fine-tune the delivery of those services.
Continuamos ahora con el módulo 2, en el cual el señor Finnigan nos explicará los
Mr.
pasos
Finnigan
a
will
seguir
now
para
explain
lograr
to
la
us
satisfacción
the
del
steps
cliente.
to follow in order to achieve this client satisfaction.
In the 1970s and 1980s, the management mantra for top-level executives of outstanding service organizations was profit and market share. Today, managers know that in the new economy, it is frontline workers and customers that need to be the center of their concern. Successful service managers now are paying attention to the factors that drive profitability in this new service paradigm. Paying attention to the customer is certainly not a new idea, but too many top-level managers still consider customer contact the bailiwick of sales and the marketing staff. And even though they believe that market focus is a priority, most retain only limited contact with consumers, relying instead on subordinates' reports, second or third-hand information to define and sense the market for them. World-class customer satisfaction performance requires much more. World-class customer satisfaction performance requires that senior managers make customer satisfaction the organization's key business process, and that they implement measures that reflect the multiple views of productivity from customers, internal stakeholders, and investors. To achieve world-class customer satisfaction, the organization has to master 4 tasks. First, the customer and the market become the center of importance, and business results are an outcome that flows from this center. Second, a two-way line of sight exists between the organization and its customers and markets. Third, management commitment and leadership are the drivers of all the organization's activities, but they are connected to the organization's customers by its employees. Fourth, if the processes and tools employees use are to become energized as customer satisfaction enablers, there must be a constant dialogue between management and employees and regular feedback from employees. An organization's efforts to manage its performance begins with a clear vision of where it is headed. A vision is a directional statement that provides a clear picture of a desired state that the organization wants to create, and it presents that future in a vivid color, depicting both its achievability and its challenge. It is senior management's optimism, emotion, and excitement for what can be. But an important question is, how will the organization's desired state provide the kind of value added that is essential to compete in today's world? To assess how effectively an organization's vision provides total value for its customers, Robert Kaplan and David Norton conceived a system called a balanced scorecard. Their approach combines both financial and operational measures into an integrated system of performance indicators, and is comprised of 4 elements that link performance measures to the answers of 4 basic questions. 1, how do our customers see us? 2, what must we excel at? 3, can we continue to improve and create value? And 4, how do we look to shareholders? These concepts can be applied to small and large organizations. The balanced scorecard is like the dials in an airplane's cockpit. It gives managers complex information at a glance. Assessing an organization in this way provides an essential, comprehensive overview of how you are doing. It is a measurement tool that can be used by any organization, regardless of their size and regardless of their business. It works in public sectors as well as private sectors. The balanced scorecard demands that managers translate their general mission statement on customer service into specific measures that reflect the factors that really matter to customers. Customer concerns tend to fall into 4 categories: time, quality, performance, and service. Lead time measures the time required for the company to meet its customers' needs. Quality measures the defect level of incoming products as perceived and measured by the customer. The combination of performance and service measures how the company's products or services contribute to creating value for its customers. Of course, cost is always a major issue, but as customers ourselves, we know that cost is offset by the value we receive, and if not, we feel we're being cheated. Putting the balanced scorecard to work means articulating goals for time, quality, and performance and service, and then translate these goals into specific measures. Senior managers at an electronics manufacturer, for example, establish 4 general goals for customer service performance. 1, get standard products to market sooner. 2, improve product time to market. 3, become the customer's supplier of choice. And 4, through partnerships with customers, develop innovative products tailored to their customer needs. Relying on customer evaluations to define your performance measures forces the organization to view its performance through the customer's eyes. To help them, some companies hire third parties to perform anonymous customer surveys to create a customer-driven report card. For example, the J.D. Power's quality survey has become the standard of performance for the automobile industry. And the U.S. Department of Transportation's measurements of on-time arrivals and lost baggage provides external standards for U.S. airlines. Benchmarking procedures are yet another technique to compare companies, companies use to compare their performance against their competitors' best practices. Many organizations have introduced best-of-breed comparisons programs, looking to one industry to find, say, the best distribution system, to another industry for the lowest cost of payroll process. The objective is to form a composite of those best practices to set objectives for its own performance. However, such approaches can be misleading for several reasons. First, customer input and market data are useful only if they're coming from the right sources. Most industrial companies define customer as the next entity in the distribution channel, and then they stop there, routinely gathering all their marketing information accordingly. That is a mistake. Each step in the process, right down to the end user, is as important as the next. Only market data that reflects desires and needs at every step can give senior managers the kind of comprehensive picture they need to make informed, accurate decisions about new services and product positioning. For consumer goods, companies like Coca-Cola, Gillette, and Nike, the process is short, so even information that doesn't reflect all the steps will probably be on or near target. But for large organizations, several steps removed from the end user of a finished product, such an error can result in a grossly inaccurate portrayal of the market. That is why the balanced scorecard is so significant to broadly measuring the organization, because it views the organization from 4 perspectives. The financial perspective: if we succeed, how will we look to our shareholders? This perspective has 3 dimensions: the profitability, the growth, and of course shareholder value. The customer view: to achieve our vision, how must we look to our customers? Here there are 4 dimensions: time, quality, performance, and the cost of ownership. The internal operating perspective: to delight our customers, what management processes must we excel at? Here there are 3 dimensions: cycle time, quality, and productivity. The innovation and learning perspective: to achieve our vision, how must the organization continuously learn, improve, and create value? Here the focus is on innovation, continuous learning, and intellectual assets. This perspective recognizes that many organizations today are building learning organizations of themselves for competitive advantage, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. What I want to share with you now is a service profit process that puts hard values on soft measures. This process helps managers target new investments to develop service and satisfaction levels for maximum competitive impact, widening the gap between service leaders and their merely good competitors. The service profit process establishes relationships between profitability, customer loyalty, and employee satisfaction, loyalty, and productivity, regardless of the organization's size. The steps in the process which should be regarded as propositions are: profit and growth are stimulated primarily by customer loyalty. Loyalty is a direct result of customer satisfaction. Satisfaction is largely influenced by the value of services provided to customers. Value is created by satisfied, loyal, and productive employees. Employee satisfaction results primarily from high-quality support services and policies that enable employees to deliver results to customers. The service profit process is also defined by a special kind of leadership. CEOs of exemplary service companies emphasize the importance of each employee and customer. For these CEOs, the focus on customer employees is no empty slogan tailored to an annual management meeting. As an example, Herbert Kelleher, CEO of Southwest Airlines, can be found aboard airplanes, on tarmacs, and in the terminals, interacting with his employees and customers. Kelleher believes that anyone who looks at things solely in terms of factors that can easily be quantified is missing the heart of the business, which is people. William Pollard, the chairman of ServiceMaster, continually underscores the importance of teacher-learner managers who have what he calls a servant's heart, what some people call servant leadership. Let's look at each proposition of the service profit process one at a time. Customer loyalty drives profitability and growth. New measures of service industries like software and banking suggest that customer loyalty is a more important determinant of profit than being number one or number two. For example, it is estimated that a 5% increase in customer loyalty can produce profit increases of 25 to 85%. This suggests that quality of market share, measured in terms of customer loyalty, deserves as much attention as quantity of share. Customer satisfaction drives customer loyalty. Leading service organizations are currently trying to quantify customer satisfaction. For example, at Xerox, we poll 4,800 customers each year regarding product and service satisfaction using a 5-point scale from 5 to 1, 5 high, 1 low. Until just a few years ago, Xerox's goal was to achieve 100% 4s, satisfied, and 5s, very satisfied, by the end of 1993. But in 1991, an analysis of our customers who gave 4s and 5s on satisfaction found that the relationship between the scores and the actual loyalty differed greatly, as I explained earlier, depending on whether the customers were satisfied or very satisfied. Because customers giving 5s were 6 times more likely to repurchase our equipment than those giving 4s. Scott Cook, CEO of Intuit Corporation, describes customers so satisfied that they convert the uninitiated to a product or services as apostles. He also wants to avoid creating terrorists, those customers so unhappy that they speak out against a poorly delivered service at every opportunity, because terrorists can reach hundreds of potential customers, and in some instances they can even discourage acquaintances from trying a service or a product. Value drives customer satisfaction. Customers today are strongly value-oriented. As we have discussed, value means the results the customer receives in relation to the total costs, both the price and any other costs incurred in acquiring